The next questions are: identify the name of the poem by John Donne which refers to the spiritual love and eventual occurrence of two lovers as saints. The answer is the canonization. In the poem The Canonization, written by the metaphysical poet John Donne, the two lovers engage themselves in immortal and pure love and become saints, which means they canonize their passion into a spiritual bond. The poem attacks the metaphysical style and says his passion would never drown or end due to earthly troubles. Dash is an elegy written by John Milton on the death of Edward King. The answer is Lycidas. Lycidas is an elegy written by John Milton on the death of Edward King. Lycidas is a pastoral elegy. John Milton wrote it in the year 1637 on the death of Edward King. King Edward was a friend of Milton in Cambridge. He died when his ship sank in the Irish Sea. The poem has 193 lines and is very irregularly rhymed. The poem was republished in 1645. The question number 28 says Dryden targeted Thomas Sadwell in one of his works. What was the name? The answer is Macflacknoe. Macflacknoe, or a satire upon true blue Protestant poet, was a verse satire written by Dryden in 1678. The poem was a direct satire on the Thomas Sadwell, another famous poet of that time. It was a mock heroic poetry. Dash was referred to as Belinda in the mock epic The Rape of the Lock. The answer is Arabella Fermor. Arabella Fermor was referred to as Belinda in the mock epic The Rape of the Lock. The Rape of the Lock is a mock epic poem written between the years sword undefined. The poem is a saturation about how family quarrels over a lock of hair. The argument in a verse takes place between the families of Arabella Fermor, referred to as Belinda in the poem, and Lord Peter, referred to as Baron. Lyrical Ballads was written in collaboration by Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. During the early years of the career, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge used to work collaboratively. Their most famous work is Lyrical Ballads, which was published in the year 1800. Though both of them have almost equally contributed to the project, the preface, which referred to the Romantic movement, was written by Wordsworth. It is beautiful, it is mournful, it is monotonous. This comment was made by Charlotte Bronte for which of the following poems of Alfred Tennyson? The answer is In Memoriam. The above comment has been made by Charlotte Bronte about the poem In Memoriam by Alfred Tennyson, and the poem is said to be one of his most outstanding poet achievements. After learning that his closest friend, the young Cambridge poet Arthur Henry Hallam, had suddenly died at age 22 of a cerebral hemorrhage, Tennyson had composed the poem. The other poems given in the option are written by Tennyson as well. Which of the following poems is not written by the famous Victorian poet Robert Browning? The answer is Dover Beach. The poem The Dover Beach is not composed by the eminent Victorian poet Robert Browning. It has been instead written by Matthew Arnold. The other three poems are written by him. The poem Dover Beach revolves around the idea that sadness is a natural part of the human experience. In the absence of religious faith, the world is ultimately uncaring and blind to human strife and sufferings. Question number 33 says The Blessed Damozel was contributed by which of the famous pre Raphaelite poets in a short lived periodical called The Germ, which contained some significant literary works of the Brotherhood? The answer is Dante Gabriel Rossetti. The Blessed Damozel was contributed by the famous pre Raphaelite poet Dante Gabriel Rossetti in a short lived periodical called The Germ, which survived for four issues only. It contained significant contributions of D.G. Rossetti, like A Tale Named Hand and Soul, and the poem My Sister's Sleep. Christina Rossetti, then 18, contributed many poems as well, including Dreamland and Repining. In the poem Sealed of Achilles by W.H. Auden, we witness the contrast between two worlds. They are classical world and the modern world. In the Shield of Achilles by the modernist writer W.H. Auden, we encounter two worlds, the classical and modern worlds. Thetis, the goddess mother of Achilles, Hephaestus, and Achilles, represents the classical world simultaneously. The new shield made by the god Hephaestus symbolizes a modern world afflicted with war and violence. Thus, the poem is built on a striking contrast between a mythic world, admirable and blissful, and a contemporary world infested with repulsive and abhorrent elements. The Raven, one of the famous Gothic poems published in 1845, was written by the following poets. The answer is Edgar Allan Poe. The Raven is arguably considered Edgar Allan Poe's the most famous poem. It is one of the early examples of Gothic literature that involves horror and Irenaeus as its setting, apart from horrific castles, murders, criminal activities, and supernatural elements. The Raven was first published in Undefined. The dichotomy between good and evil can be considered one of the significant themes of the poems. In 1912, Ezra Pound coined the term imagism to describe the clean, visual, minimalist poetry he championed. Fill in the blank with the appropriate option as given below. The term imagism was coined by Ezra Pound in 1912 to describe the clean, visual, minimalist poetry that he pioneered. Pound defined the word image as an intellectual and emotional complex in an instant of time, thus being motivated by the idea of making it new and following the principles of imagism. His poem got shaped against traditional formalism and diction. There was the exhibition of the free verse. Who among the following can be called the father of English prose? The answer is King Alfred. King Alfred can be rightly called the father of English prose, and his works mark the true beginning of the prose. Cadmon is an old English poet, and his hymn of creation is the only poem that can be celebrated. It was composed around 670 and is only 9 lines in length. Wulfric wrote Catholic homilies, Lives of the Saints, and Heptateuch Wulfstan, another great prose writer, contributed as well to Anglo-Saxon prose. Choose from the options given below the names of some famous prose writers and of the pre-Caesarean period. The answer is Alfric, Alfred the Great, Venerable Bede the John of Treviso. Alfric, Alfred the Great, and Venerable Bede were famous prose writers of the pre-Caesarean period. Prose writing arrived much later than that of poetry and was not there until the undefined century. Anglo-Saxon literature was mainly composed in verse forms and was passed orally from generation to generation. Edward Albert called which of the following poets and authors the earliest and of the great moderns? The answer is Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer was considered one of the earliest pioneers of English poetry and was therefore called the father of English poetry, and the great critic Edward Albert called him the earliest of the great moderns. He is also considered the morning star of Renaissance, as he stands during the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the modern age. In Roger Ascham's book Des Toxophilus, which was published in 1545, he expresses in his preface an apology which reflects upon his dissatisfaction with the neglect of the native literature. Fill in the blank with the appropriate option. Roger Ascham, 1515 to 1568, the famous classical scholar, published a book called Toxophilus, a school of shooting in 1545, where he expresses a considerable dissatisfaction over the neglect of native literature in his preface or apology dedicated to King Henry VIII. It is the first book or archery written in English literature. Who among the following prose writers belong to the Puritan age? The answer is Thomas Shepard. Thomas Shepard can be considered one of New England's theological writers who have gone down in history as the progenitors of a tradition of religious prose who achieved popularity as a writer and a pulpit orator. Charles Lamb, Thomas Carlyle, and John Ruskin were eminent writers of the later periods. Millamant and Mirabelle are characters from which of the popular restoration comedies by William Congreve, The Way of the World. William Congreve is one of the most popular restoration period playwrights. His characters have a superficial coarseness that betrays the traits of sympathy, faithfulness, kindness, honesty, or loyalty. Millamant and Mirabelle are two such characters in his play The Way of the World, with amorous interests in between them. The other plays Love for Love, The Morning Bridge, and The Old Bachelor are all plays written by William Congreve. Find the writer given below who is the odd one among the given options. The answer is Alfred Ainger, William Bradford, John Winthrop, and Edward Taylor are prominent writers of the Puritan age. They celebrated in their works the heroic attributes of ordinary people and made spirituality their ultimate objective. Their common themes included political and religious idealism. Here, the odd one among the given options is Alfred Ainger, 9 February 1837 to 8 February 1904, an English biographer and critic. Name the periodical that was founded by Samuel Johnson and was published weekly. The answer is the Idler. The Idler Undefined was founded by Samuel Johnson and was published weekly. The periodical, namely the Rambler, 1752 Undefined, was founded by Samuel Johnson, but it was published on Tuesdays and Saturdays. The founder of the Guardian, 12 March Undefined to Undefined, October Undefined was Richard Steele, whereas the Spectator, which was published by Joseph Addison and Richard Steele, was published regularly. All these periodicals were significant in the Augustan age or the age of reason. Tobias Smollett composed a novel in 1751 which was a picaresque tale and had a mischievous hero as its protagonist. Name the novel. The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle. The novel The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle was written by Tobias Smollett in Undefined. It tells the story of an egotistical man who experiences luck and misfortunes at the head of undefined century European society and was published in 4 volumes. The novel is picaresque and we see a comic and savage portrayal of undefined century society in a harsh tone. The title, Sense and Sensibility, represents which of the two characters in Jane Austen's first published novel, Sense and Sensibility? The answer is Eleanor and Marianne. In the famous novel of the Romantic Age, novelist Jane Austen, Sense and Sensibility refer to Eleanor and Marianne's two sisters. The characters Lydia and Mary Bennet are from her other novel Pride and Prejudice. Mary Crawford and Julia Bertram are characters from the novel Mansfield Park, which was immensely popular. The final option denotes two notable characters from her novel Pride and Prejudice. Yet again, which of the remarkable Gothic novels of the Romantic Age revolves around an orphaned girl, namely Emily St. Aubert, who is shown to be subjected to cruelties in a haunting setting that defined the genre. The Mysteries of Udolpho. On Radcliffe's 1794 novel, The Mysteries of Udolpho revolved around the orphaned girl Emily St. Aubert, who was tortured to aggressive cruelties by her guardians and was locked up in castles. The haunting setting The eeriness and the wickedness that embalmed the novel marked it to be one of the most fabulous creations in the genre of Gothic literature. The theme of fear was highlighted very prominently throughout his novel. William Godwin's book, Inquiry Concerning Political Justice, is the foundation upon which most of the Jacobean novels are built upon. The answer is Inquiry Concerning Political Justice. Jacobean's novels were written by those British radicals who supported the ideals and facets of the French Revolution. William Godwin, Elizabeth Inchbald, Thomas Holcroft, and Robert Page were all effective and outstanding writers of this type of novel. The William Godwin's celeb Williams was one of the most popular books of this type of novel. His other book, Inquiry Concerning Political Justice, sets the foundation on which the works of most of the Jacobean novelists are based upon. Writers and novelists widely follow its principles and theories. During the second stage of Romanticism in English literature, who can be credited with the revival of historical attributes in his writing and the invention of the historical novel? The answer is Walter Scott. The period of English Romanticism was a very creative one, with rapid changes in the historical and social sphere, with reconstruction and readjustment of the cultural sphere of the world. The works were mainly an amalgamation of individual feelings, emotional experiences, and imagination. The second phase of Romanticism, ranging roughly from about undefined to the undefined, was marked by a quickening of cultural nationalism, and widespread attention was given to the works of national origins. The medieval period as well as the Renaissance. The credit of the invention of the historical novel can be given to Sir Walter Scott, a notable literary figure of this period. Which among the following writers are known for writing the novels of manners? The answer is Jane Austen, Henry James, Evelyn Waugh, John Marquand. Novels of manners are works of fiction that provided minute and detailed descriptions of the society with its customs, values, complexities, and principles. Jane Austen, Henry James, Evelyn Waugh, and John Marquand wrote novels of manners from the end of the undefined century into the undefined century, which reflected upon the social norms and conventions and held a mirror to the society. The subtitle of which of the following novels of the Victorian age is a novel without a hero? The answer is Vanity Fair. The subtitle of the famous Victorian novel Vanity Fair is a novel without a hero. The novel has been written by William Makepeace Thackeray, and the novelist has used his real name for the first time during the publication of this novel. The novel is a densely populated, multi-layered panorama of manners and human frailties, and has a very engaging plot with the depiction of recent history. The other novels given in the options are written by the famous Victorian novelist Charles Dickens. The diversity and variety of the traits, ranks, and occupations of Chaucer's characters bring forth the evaluation of the prologue in terms of the three states model. Chaucer's three ideal pilgrims who complete the three states model in general prologue are the knight, the parson, the plowman. The the monk. The answer is the knight, the parson, the plowman. The three pilgrims who complete the three estates model in general prologue are the knight, the parson, and the plowman, and through the descriptions of Chaucer, they represent the perfect integration of the three estates, clergy, nobility, and peasantry for the continuation of the social organizations. The knight stands for the chivalric values that give him the right to govern and responsibility to protect the community, while the parson, who stands for the clergy with his responsibility for the spiritual advancement of man, is also described with the emphasis on his individual, social, and religious characteristics that are worthy of praise. The plowman is the third ideal pilgrim who belongs to the social class that supplies the laboring force and the material substance of medieval society. He is mainly depicted in positive terms as he works hard for the sake of the church and society. Which of the following novels are written by D.H. Lawrence? The answer is The White Peacock. The White Peacock was written by D.H. Lawrence and published in Undefined. It was his first published novel. The novel is set in neither Mayer, fictional name for real life Eastwood, and involves a love triangle and a subsequent unhappy marriage as its plot. To the Lighthouse was written by Virginia Woolf. Brave New World was written by Aldous Huxley, while The Time Machine was written by H.G. Wells. Jean-Louis Scott Finch is a crucial character in one of the most famous American literature named the novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The answer is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Jean-Louis Scott Finch is a crucial character in To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. She criticizes modern society through her character Jean Louis Scott Finch, who looks at society through her innocent eyes and interprets everything with her innocent thoughts. She found a problem when she encountered people making judgments based on prejudice. Which of the following fiction about maritime is correctly matched? The answer is all of the above. Evelyn Wauch put out more flags 1942. Henry Green Scout 1943. James Henley's No Directions 1943. Patrick Hamilton's The Slave of Solitude 1947. Elizabeth Bowen's The Heat of the Day 1949. The title of which of the notable works of Maya Angelou has been derived from the poem Sympathy by the great black poet Paul Laurence Dunbar? The answer is I know why the bird sings. Maya Angelou's first book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is an autobiography that reflects her disruptive life and her struggles that she had to overcome. Baffled by indefinite obstacles in her life, Angelou writes the book with a twist of lyrical imagery mixed with a touch of realism. The title of this book is said to have been taken from the poem Sympathy by the great black poet Paul Lawrence Dunbar and displays an impulse towards transcendence in life. The Bell Jar, written by Sylvia Plath, was first published in 1963 under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas. The Bell Jar, written by Sylvia Plath, was first published in 1963 under the pseudonym Victoria Lucas and was later released posthumously under her real name. Richard Bachman was the pen name of Stephen King, whereas Mary Westmacott was the pen name of Agatha Christie. Mary Anne Evans used the pseudonym George Eliot. In which book of Mark Twain do we find the story of a poor boy who changes places with Henry VIII's son Prince Edward, the Prince and the Pauper? In the book The Prince and the Pauper, Mark Twain describes the experiences of a poor boy named Tom Canty who changes places with Henry VIII's son, Prince Edward. The writer uses sharp criticism against the feudal system as prevalent in the 16th century and how some people were turning corrupt by its properties, using it to their advantage. In the Anglo Norman literature, a courtly version of the Tristan, a story written by Thomas in the 12th century, was used by Gottfried von Strasbourg in which of the following works? The answer is Tristan and Isolde. Anglo-Norman literature was full of romances. The 12th century romance Tristan, a courtly version, was written by Thomas, has survived in scattered forms and was used by Gottfried von Strasbourg in Tristan and Isolde. Roman de Taute Cavalry was also written by Thomas Amadas Edwin and Amiset Emilon were examples of more courtly types of romances in the 13th century. Historia Rerum Anglicarum, written by English chronicler William of Newburgh, has been described as being both in substance and the form the finest historical work left to us by an Englishman of the 12th century. The answer is Historia Rerum Anglicarum. Historia Rerum Anglicarum has been described as being both in substance and the form the finest historical work left to us by an Englishman of the undefined century. It was written at the close of the undefined century at the request of Arnold, abbot of Revaux. It was considered to be the most significant work of the English chronicler William of Newburgh.